What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back in the video. I have now drafted in 46 paid leagues since the NFL draft. These are the players I have drafted the most of. My single most drafted player who I've taken in over 30% of these teams is Diontae Johnson. Diontae is the 45th wide receiver off boards, despite point per game finishes of the wide receiver 39, 21, 9, 52, and 39 in his career. And I think it's that 52 finish that kind of shapes people's narrative around him, because that was just an historic season where he somehow did not score a touchdown despite finishing 6th in the NFL in targets. No player in the history of the NFL had as many targets as he had without scoring a touchdown. In all of his other seasons, he has averaged a touchdown every 12.2 receptions, which is actually a pretty decent rate for NFL wide receivers. So had he just simply converted at like his normal career rate in any other season, he'd have scored 7 times and been the wide receiver 28 in points per game. But let's count that season. It happened, right? Let's count it. Let's add it to his stats. He now, for his career, averages 1 touchdown every 15.6 receptions. So again, including a historically unlucky season, he scored a touchdown every 15.6 receptions. The following is a list of players who have scored at a lower rate than that over that same time. Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Michael Pittman Jr., Chris Olave, Chris Godwin, players who have scored at the same rate as Diontae Johnson: Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Some players who've scored at a very slightly higher rate, a marginally higher rate: Deebo Samuel, Julio Jones, Jalen Waddle, and Nico Collins. So we shouldn't really be concerned about Diontae's ability to score touchdowns. Another thing people are worried about with Diontae is the targets, right? Bryce Young was pretty trash as a rookie, so people are worried that Diontae's targets are going to be much lower quality. But look at who Diontae has been playing with. When he was 39th in points per game as a rookie, he caught the vast majority of his targets from Mason Rudolph and Delvin Hodges on a team that was 26th in pass attempts, 27th in scoring. He was then 21st in points per game when Big Ben returns the following season, though remember, this was a 38-year-old Big Ben that was averaging 2.5 yards per completion below his career average. Then he was 9th in points per game the following season, finished 2nd in the league in targets with 169, with the corpse of Big Ben throwing to him in Big Ben's final season. Ben at that point was just like cooked, completely cooked, couldn't throw the ball more than 2 yards downfield any given play. Diontae did still score 8 times that season, but the next closest wide receiver on the team only scored twice. Like, the offense just never got going at any point. 2 years ago, you have Big Ben retiring. Diontae had that historic season, 6th in targets, didn't score a touchdown, as Kenny Pickett and Trubisky were the combined quarterbacks that season. They only threw 5 total touchdowns across the entire season to wide receivers. That is an absolutely insane stat. 5 total passing touchdowns to wide receivers over an entire season. CJ Stroud almost did that in week 9 last year. He threw 5 touchdowns, 4 of them went to wide receivers. Then last season, we have the rotation of Kenny Pickett, Trubisky, Rudolph, also while Diontae is battling back from a hamstring injury, suffering both thumb and knee injuries once returning. So yes, Bryce Young had a pretty tough rookie season, but he was also throwing to a 33-year-old Adam Thielen every single play because he had no one else to throw to. No one was open. You had to pepper Adam Thielen with targets. But it's not like Diontae Johnson is coming from the Chiefs. He's not coming from Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, right? He's not coming from a really good quarterback and now having poor quarterback play. Diontae's had poor quarterback play in every single season of his career, and if it wasn't for getting historically unlucky in 1 year, then he would have paid off his current ADP in all 5 years. So, and even in the year that he was historically unlucky, he would have barely not paid off this current ADP. So, like, he's been dealing with this situation. Now you move to Bryce Young. At least there's a chance that Bryce Young, like, maybe he's a bust, right? But I think the ADP is basically assuming that's a guarantee, that Bryce Young is just a terrible quarterback, can't ever do anything. But what if he's not? Like, I feel like if Bryce Young's a terrible quarterback, wide receiver 45 is probably still a little bit too low, but makes a little bit more sense. If you can just approach slightly below average quarterback play from Bryce Young, then you're basically getting a league winner with Diontae Johnson. Like we saw last season, Bryce Young is not against locking into one quarterback and just peppering them with targets. Adam Thielen was quite literally the wide receiver 5 through week 6 last season. You don't think that's something Diontae Johnson can do? Like, what do you think is basically more likely to happen? If they're going to go back to a now 34-year-old Adam Thielen, or someone that, they brought in to be their ex-wide receiver who runs every single route at an above average success rate, is elite versus man, press, zone, double teams, any metric you want to look at, any route, any coverage, it doesn't matter. Diontae Johnson is elite against it. He is one of the best, if not the best, separators in the NFL. He gets open more than anyone else, and the problem with their offense last season was no one would get open. So they had to pepper the only competent wide receiver on the roster with 1 million targets. Well, that competent wide receiver is 34 years old right now, and there's no one else right now that's a proven talent. I guess people like Leggett, but I'm not in on Leggett. He is a 5-year prospect in college that took until his 5th season to break out. Those late breakout 1-year wonders have a very, very poor success rate in the NFL. Athletically, he grades out exactly like Jonathan Mingo. I don't buy it. I don't buy in Mingo. I don't buy in Leggett. Diontae Johnson's going to be the guy. He's going to get 1 million targets. As wide receiver 45, there's no risk, all upside. Next up, we have my most rostered running back, and that is Derrick Henry. And I know this sounds crazy, but I'm trying to think of reasons why Derrick Henry is not a first round pick. And it's pretty difficult to do other than saying maybe he could get hurt. Because getting hurt is probably the only way that he doesn't return first round value. There's currently 8 running backs that are being drafted ahead of him. He's firmly a 3rd round pick, one of the easiest picks you can make right now. Over the last 5 seasons, Henry's been the running back 2, 5, 1, 3, and 15 in points per game. I think it's that one non-top 5 finish that is scaring people off. But remember, Derrick Henry is the single most game script dependent running back in NFL history. He averages 10 more points per game in wins than losses. And that is something we talked about going into last season. I mean, hey, he's been on a good team. They've been a team that's been up a lot in the second half. We know that teams that are winning, their running backs end up doing better because you get up in the game, you run the ball a lot more. We know Derrick Henry, you give him 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 touches. It really starts to hurt the defense. That's where he can break off these long runs, more possibilities for that. The touchdowns when the team's doing well, it all correlates well with Derrick Henry. Last season, we knew the Titans were not going to be as good, and so those game scripts were going to kind of go away. There'd be more Tyjae Spears games. This season, it's a little different, right? He joins the Ravens. They have a significantly better offensive line. They are significantly more efficient in the red zone, as if you needed that with Derrick Henry. They're going to be leading the vast majority of the time. This is quite literally the dream landing spot for one of the best running backs in NFL history. Derrick Henry has 20 touchdown upside this season, and his floor, if healthy, is 12 or 13 touchdowns. Because think about it, he's scored at least 10 in 6 consecutive seasons, which includes an 8-game season, and last year, the Titans scored less than 17 points per game. He still scored 12 times. Then you think about it, it's okay, what else happened last season? Well, the trailing scripts and having Spears. Spears is way better than any of the backups that Baltimore has right now. Backups for Baltimore are Keaton Mitchell, who's not even going to start the season healthy. He's no threat. Justice Hill, obviously not a threat to Derrick Henry. Rasheen Ali, is he even going to make the team? He's not that good of a prospect. I am baffled by his ADP. I am 100% willing to die on this hill. I will draft Derrick Henry in 100% of leagues if I have to. There does become a point where it's just not possible to get him because you want to get him around his ADP. It'd be nice, but I have him in well over 30% of my drafts right now. I'm perfectly fine getting him in half of my drafts if I need to. It feels like cheating getting Derrick Henry in round 3. You are getting someone who could rival Christian McCaffrey in scoring, and you can get them if you reach with Christian McCaffrey and a round 2 wide receiver. Feels unfair. I don't understand the ADP. Moving on to tight end, where my most rostered tight end is Jake Ferguson. He was 9th in points per game last season, coming off the board as the tight end 9 right now. And he was 9th in points per game, not counting the playoff game where he had 10 receptions, 93 yards, and 3 touchdowns. His 71 receptions last year were 19th most in history by a tight end that was 24 years or younger. His 37.3 full PPR points in their only playoff games was the 3rd most by any tight end of any age in NFL history, right behind Gronk and Kelsey, right ahead of Vernon Davis, Kellen Winslow, and Shannon Sharp. And if we look to this season, what exactly is going to change? Like, they have the 10th most available targets after losing Tony Pollard and Michael Gallup. They brought in 0 competition at tight end, basically 0 competition at wide receiver, while only filling Pollard's shoes with Zeke, who's going to have far less receptions than he will. Ferguson is easily in line to match last year. I think it was like 102 targets last year. Easily in line for over 100 targets, right? Could pretty easily push for 115, 120. That'll be top 5 at the position. Also worth noting, these are high quality targets, right? If you're worried about the targets for Diontae Johnson, you're not worried about the targets for Jake Ferguson. He's also going to be featured in the red zone. No tight end was used more in the red zone last season. In fact, only CeeDee Lamb, Devonta Adams, Calvin Ridley, and Tyreek Hill saw more red zone targets among all players, right? Those 4 were the only ones also to get more inside the 10. So it wasn't a situation where they looked to him inside the 20, but when they got inside the 10, they only went to CeeDee Lamb. No. Only 4 players at any position had more targets inside the 10-yard line than Jake Ferguson last season, and it's not going to change this year. Ferguson was actually kind of unlucky to finish as low as he did last year because he should have scored more than 5 touchdowns, being 5th among all players in targets inside the 20 and inside the 10. We saw that variance play out in the playoff game. He should have scored more over the season. So being able to get him now at 25 years old as the 9th tight end off boards is incredible. Tight end ceiling, like what the 90th percentile outcome is for tight ends, that really falls off quickly. You've got guys like Laporta, Kelsey, Kincaid, Andrews, guys that have really, really high ceilings. McBride obviously thrown in there as well. But as we start to get later in the draft, you get to be like, okay, I really like this guy. Maybe they can get to 50 receptions and 4 touchdowns. Right? Like, there's a real cap to the ceiling of these later tight ends. Not Ferguson. He can be a tight end 1 this season. He can lead all tight ends in touchdowns by a lot. He's a phenomenal pick as a tight end 9. My most rostered quarterback is CJ Stroud. He is a quarterback 5 in drafts right now, so not cheap. Not going to get him easily in drafts, but he's been dipping a lot recently, and he also goes in a range where like the elite running backs are gone. There's still really good wide receivers, but I would say like the elite ones are also gone. So he goes in a good range where like that talent is starting to drop off. We know in that general round 5 range is where total talent for running back and wide receiver historically has also fallen off. It's a good spot to take a quarterback that I think has just the perfect combination of ceiling, safety, and draft location. You guys know I love Anthony Richardson, right? But a knock a lot of people have, which is valid, is that he loves to run people over, right? So he's going to go out there and score like 27 points per game when he's healthy and be a league winner, but then he's going to try and run someone over for 3 extra yards and he's going to like break a shoulder, right? Like that is just a better possibility for him. Well, we know that Stroud will scramble like 2.5 times a game. He's going to have like 10 to 15 rushing yards. He's going to take it when he's there, but he's going to slide. He's not going to take extra hits, and he will scramble near the goal line, which is also important. He's going to have a few rushing touchdowns. That's nice to see. But overall, he's safe, right? Like we can sit here and debate, exactly how good he is, right? And a lot of people think he can regress from his rookie season. I'm not trying to debate that. We're not saying, exactly what level of quarterback is CJ Stroud. The fact of the matter is he's a good quarterback and he's above average quarterback. I think that's just an undeniable fact. He is a quality quarterback. He's probably not top 5, but he is definitely top 15, right? Guess how many rookie quarterbacks have thrown for at least 23 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions or fewer. So more than 23 touchdowns, less than 6, I guess 5 or fewer touchdowns. It's only 2. It's Dak Prescott, CJ Stroud. How many rookie quarterbacks have played at least 10 games and thrown for 270 or more passing yards? 3. Justin Herbert, Andrew Luck, and CJ Stroud. And, Stroud did it again. 5 interceptions. Luck had like 18 that year. Herbert had double digits as well. Guess how many quarterbacks have at least 8.6 adjusted yards per pass attempt as a rookie on at least 300 pass attempts? 2. Dak and Stroud. This is all with missing Tank Dell for 6 games, Nico for 2 games, Noah Brown for 7 games. I know you'll raise your eyebrow. Noah Brown, he was their 3rd best receiver last season. He's now got Tank Dell fully healthy, Nico Collins, and Stephon Diggs now joining the team. Again, even if he's going to regress a little bit, even if he's maybe not as good as the public thinks after having a historic rookie season, even if that is the case, look at those skill players surrounding him. How do you fail? And then you think about the reverse. What if he gets better? What if he is actually just a very, very good quarterback? Then he's going to absolutely crush in fantasy. And again, for the crowd that is scared of these mobile quarterbacks, it's a positive having that mobility, but it's also a positive having a quarterback that is a little bit more likely to stay healthy, that'll run it when they need to, but will run it near the goal line. And we did see last season he is capable of just noticing when he needs to take off inside the 5 and converting those touchdowns. Those are great in fantasy. So again, could regress a little bit, but I mean, you dream of skill players like this. You dream of also having a running back that's capable, but honestly isn't super efficient on the ground, that you should probably be using the receiving game as well. They're going to throw the ball every play. They're going to throw the ball every play between the 20s, inside the 20, inside the 10. It is just such a good situation. He has 5,000 passing yard, 30-plus touchdown passing upside. And then the kicker. Look at the playoff schedule. I know it's not the best defensive matchups. He gets versus the Dolphins. That's a shootout. At Kansas City. That's a shootout. Versus the Ravens. That's a shootout. He gets 3 shootouts in the fantasy playoffs. So for those of you who care about winning championships, you look at that and you're like, okay, all those games are probably going to have a 52-point total and higher, assuming, general health of these quarterbacks. That's insane. He's going to have an amazing season. I think he's well worth his ADP. And there are people who are definitely off of him. So I don't think his ADP is going to go up from this point on. Final player we'll go for today is true to the title, someone I can't stop drafting. My question is, should I stop drafting them? This is a question I'm posing to you guys. I feel very confident about the 4 we talked about. I love all of them. I'm going to keep hammering them all summer unless their ADPs go up by 5 rounds, right? I'm not 100% sure in my take on this next player, so I would love to know in the comment section what you guys think. I cannot stop drafting Josh Jacobs, 2nd most drafted running back behind Derrick Henry. I think it's going to work out really well. I'm just not as confident as I am in those first 4, so I'd love to know your opinions in the comment section below. Here is my take personally. Yes, they drafted Marshawn Lloyd. I like Marshawn Lloyd. I have a good projection on Marshawn Lloyd. I have him, I think he's ADP 45. I have him 43. So I have him above ADP, pretty good projection on him. But I think it's more of an issue if you are A.J. Dillon. Right? A.J. Dillon has had at least 200 touches in all of the last 3 years, has been highly inefficient, coming off an unbelievably inefficient season. I think if you're A.J. Dillon, you're sitting here sweating, being like, oh, I think Marshawn Lloyd is coming for my job. And I said, I have a good projection on Marshawn Lloyd. I still only have him projected for 119 carries, 21 receptions. So both of those are less than what A.J. Dillon did last season. So there is room for Marshawn Lloyd to come in here, kind of kick out A.J. Dillon. If they even keep him, they could theoretically cut A.J. Dillon as well. But he can kind of kick out A.J. Dillon, take over that role. And there's still a ton of touches left over for Jacobs to assume Aaron Jones plus role. So what Aaron Jones is doing plus more. And when you listen to the Packers talk about why they let Aaron Jones go, it's because they didn't think he could stay healthy. And with him turning 30 this year, they probably weren't going to give him another contract after the season. And so it was maybe just asking for the pay cut. If he's not going to take the pay cut, which was about 50%, they wanted to have him take a pay cut down from 12 to 6. Ask him for that. If he says no, cut him. Look for our future in free agency. So they looked free agency. They hand select Josh Jacobs, someone who's proven He can stay healthy. He can handle a lot of touches in a season. He's nearly 3 years younger than Aaron Jones. I feel like people think Aaron Jones is younger than he is. People think Josh Jacobs is older. There's a 3-year gap between him and Aaron Jones, and no one has been talking about, Aaron Jones being, oh, Aaron Jones is too old. But it's like some people literally think that Jacobs at 26 years old is cooked. He's literally in the prime of his career, so I wouldn't worry about that. I understand the argument that, historically, when running backs are coming off wildly inefficient seasons, they have seen on average their touches drop the following season. But the sample size for that is incredibly low. The sample size of that moving from a bad situation to a great one is basically non-existent. Like, we are working with such small sample sizes here. I would not say, ooh, running back get a lot of touches, not efficient, bad running back following season. Like that, you can't just draw that sort of line. You have to do a little bit more analysis than that. Please do not overlook, the situation upgrade that Jacobs has this season. The Packers are a very strong offense, great coaching. You love when we can get these combinations of, players that are young, athletic, really good at what they do, with coaching staffs that are going to put them in position to succeed. That is the case for the Packers. Jacobs is literally moving from a bottom 7 offense to a top 7 offense that hand selected him to replace a running back they were giving 16.5 touches per game over the last 5 years. And all of this is before considering the fact that Marshawn Lloyd could easily bust. We like to have these, rosy outlook on rookies, and I do think that Lloyd is good, but the Jaguars really liked Tank Bigsby before he collapsed as a rookie. Remember 2 years ago, Zamir White, the concerns that he was going to come in, he was going to steal a ton of touches from Jacobs. He ends up with 17. Jacobs has 393. How about this exact team in 2020? The concerns that them drafting A.J. Dillon, that, Aaron Jones wouldn't be that good. Dillon didn't see much involvement. Jones had 248 touches and 11 touchdowns. So just because a team says in May and June that they hope to use Lloyd a lot does not mean that they're going to, does not mean he's going to end up being a really good player, better than Josh Jacobs. That is honestly unlikely to happen. The most likely outcome in my eyes is that Jacobs is featured on the Packers as the 11th running back off boards. To me, you have to take that, right? To me, it's like we could see a situation like 2 years ago when he was a clear league winner, and you can get him again as a running back 11. So I think that's too good a value to pass up. But of course, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel while you're down there. And if you want to end up with these players in your drafts, be sure to check out my rankings at my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. We'll be talking about tight ends over the next 2 days, so be on the lookout for those videos. That, my friends, is in this one, and thanks for watching.